The Wittering Podcast, Episode 1, featuring Andy Crouch and Paul A, talking about Steamy SAS heroics, a man in a bag, humans being dicks, and why is our water so shit?
Hello, listener, and welcome to the Wittering Podcast. And an immediate apology to you on behalf of the universe if your life so far has led you to the point where you have nothing better to do than spend the next 40 minutes or so, if we make it that long, listening to us witter on about whatever we want, whatever grabs our fancy. Perhaps you should have made better choices when you were younger, but now you're here. Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Andy Crouch. I'm feeling quite old today, a bit creaky around the knees and brain. Who am I? Well, I describe myself as an independent thinker and doer because it sounds better than a general layabout and waster. I studied one thing of interest about me. I studied philosophy literally decades ago at university, but I dropped out twice because I realised philosophies are just opinions, and I've got more than enough of my own already. That and the drug habit.
You're in the right place, Andy. You're in the right place.
Thank you, brother. And this is my brother from a different mother, as far as we're aware, and my legendary chum, Paul. Am I using your surname, or are you going?
Paul's good. Yes.
Just Paul, yeah?
Paul, yeah.
Can I give you an initial?
Yes.
Okay, Paul A. He quite literally saved my life a few years ago, thanks to his ability to spot bullshit at 500 meters and then verbally slap a man around the head until he sees sense. So what do you want to tell the listeners or listener about yourself, Paul, if anything?
Our vast audience are the auditorium ahead. I don't know. I think that intro kind of sums up quite well. I think I'd like to add that I suppose the main guiding light is this little voice inside my head that makes me realise that we really don't know anything coming close to the truth of anything, and that the idea actually the truth is a very malleable point.
Yeah.
It's very much dependent upon how open we are to all of the information that's available and the realisation that we don't actually have all of the information at any one moment in time. And so ultimately, I acknowledge that actually I know nothing and that everything is subject to change when presented with new information. So I'm sure at some point in time, we'll get to the end of this podcast and just contradict everything that we've said by rendering the next 40 minutes useless. But let's see. Never know. Let's see what happens.
So what I'm hearing from that, which I'm jumping upon, is the fact that you kind of, I think, said to me that every time we disagree, which isn't that often, but when we do, I can make reference to this moment in time and go, you told me and our listener that you're wrong, or fundamentally. The likelihood of you being right is at best fluid. So,
well, I don't think in anything I said I actually mentioned right or wrong. I just mentioned the
that's what I heard.
There you go. See, I think if you rewind it, you'll see there's actually the interpretation of the truth, whatever the truth means. And so I can still spot whether or not something seems like it's horseshit or not. So you can say stuff, and I'll say, Andy, that sounds like bollocks to me. But that being said, as you say, I reserve. Yes, I know. I don't think we know everything, and therefore everything we have is malleable, and therefore we can come back and adjust our point of view later on. So perhaps I could say, Andy, it sounds like what you're saying is complete horseshit, but you may be right. And if it comes to the fact that you are right, I will acknowledge this moment in time in the future.
Okay, fine. So are you saying, because I like the sound of it, if you are saying it,
yes.
And if you're not saying it, I'm saying it, is that there's a sort of grasp of what might be truthful or fact based upon available information, which you're keenly aware that you don't have all of.
Yes.
And then there's your gut or your intuition or your instinct.
Yes.
And they can be very opposed.
Some may call it like your discernment.
Oh, I like that.
And also I think there's something else as well, which is about the perspective of what you're looking at, like a perspective of an event. So data, when presented, sort of like facts, and it's all very nebulous and theoretical, of course. I'm sure we'll come on to topics which will shed light on this, but you can you can have a point of view. You can have data or facts, as you call them, that mean that the specific event in question is reflected truthfully in that event.
Yeah.
But when set into the broader context of something else, that event actually, when set into its broader context, really doesn't stack up.
Okay.
So
So
I think
if you're too close to it, then
Yeah.
you see it as one way. But if you zoom out, then you realise actually no.
That doesn't work at all.
That's just completely wrong. What was I thinking?
Pretty much.
Yeah, or what? Yeah. So, all right, okay, right. Look, right. Enough of that old bollocks. so, because the normal format for the podcast, which I thought would be a good idea to introduce, this being our first one, and neither of us really know what we're doing, is that it's going to be hello, and then it's going to be 5 minutes or so of anything interesting that happened to us this week. So we've already screwed the pooch on that, and then it's going to be followed by about half an hour or so of a chat about whatever comes up. The sort of stuff we get into on our phone conversations to each other after we've spent 2 minutes dealing with the whole point of calling. Hello, Paul. How are you? Hello, Andy. Have you got 5 minutes, Paul? Yeah, I got 5 minutes for you, Andy.
45 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly. And I ask the question, you answer it. I go, fuck it. Yeah, he's probably right. Damn it. And then 45 minutes. My ribs are hurting from the belly laughs,
Right.
and then one of us goes, got to go. So yeah. Anyway, and so I was hoping that one of us had a list of topics that we could perhaps talk about after. Have you got a list or anything? Have you put anything together?
No, I thought that was your job.
Yeah, it was, and I did, but I've literally just realised I wrote some notes whilst I was away during the week. Something interesting. Well, something quite close to my heart. I don't know, it's pissing me off a lot. Is I wrote some stuff. I did like 8 minutes of research, which is 2 minutes more than I normally do about any subject.
Exceptional.
And then I wrote it in the back of one of my little black books, and I've left it in the main house. So
in the main, so you're now having to go on just on memory.
Which is appalling. I can't remember. We'll try it. We'll see. But
let's shoot and go for it.
Okay. Well, no. But first I'm asking you a question. Did anything interesting happen to you this week that you want to talk about?
Oh man, did anything interesting happen to me this week? Not that I can. I mean, there's the usual gripes and grumbles about piss poor service. Bad processes, talking to idiots, being an idiot. All of that kind of stuff. But I don't think there's anything I really want to jump on and grumble about.
Oh, fine. Well, I had a really good week. I was away for 3 days of it up country, and I was at this amazing place with some amazing people and talking about some really amazing stuff that you would love, being the hawkish warmonger you are.
Right.
But obviously I can't talk about any of it, I'm afraid. But just because it's secret.
Is it officially secret?
It's very officially secret.
Very good.
But just rely upon the fact it's absolutely fascinating, and I will probably end up talking about it inadvertently once I figured out how I can talk about it. I need to check what's public domain or not. But
should you actually be admitting to these sorts of things? Because I presume this podcast will go live, go public at some point, and in it you are suggesting that you are going to be finding a way to talk about it in a manner that doesn't, contravene certain agreements.
The official secrets. Halfway through that statement, I realised I was on heading into a cataclysmic bad place, and I recovered by saying just checking what's in the public domain.
Quite.
So because Russia and China know most of it already because they're hacking us and they leak it into the public domain. So as soon as they've released it, then I'll be able to talk about it.
Lovely. That sounds good.
Anyway, but then something did cool happen on the drive home. I was listening to some podcasts to try and figure out how one does a podcast, and there was one about because it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day yesterday, I think, and it was now if I was to say the name Carey Ells, would that trigger anything in you?
Unfortunately, not. I forgive my.
That was fine. Princess Bride.
Oh yes, yeah.
The main dude. So he's
inconceivable.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, but the swashbuckling pirate, as you wish. Was
Yes,
that's what he said? As
yes,
you
yes.
he's a Cary Elves, and he's actually a relation to this dude. And I can't remember. As I say, my memory's appalling. I can't remember any of the history. They deserve better. But he was like in the SAS in like 1944, I think, when the Brits landed in Italy, and then they were pushing up. And then what happened? It's just kind of amazing story. Short, a Slav dude who'd been in a concentration camp higher up in Italy. He'd escaped. He came down and he met the SAS or whoever, like the forward operating base or whatever it was there. And he told them that there's a concentration camp up there. And everyone was like, "What's a concentration camp?" And he said, "Well, it's where they've collected all sort of the Jews and and the naysayers, the artists, the writers, what are they called? Freedom fighters, resistance. But they probably have a different word for it if there was. Anyway, and he said there's loads of them, and it's a shit show. And so the SAS, right? They decided. I think it's Major. I think it was a Major Cary Elves at the time. He said, "Right, we're going to go and get them." And it's what you've got to go into enemy territory. You got to take control of a concentration camp, and then you got to bring. There's like maybe a couple of thousand people there. You got to do something with a couple of thousand people you rescue.
I presume it wasn't massively heavily defended if it was full of artists and stuff.
Well, yeah,
Maybe,
I
and also was when you say this individual, this Slav met the essay. I mean, he literally just stumbled. It wasn't a prearranged meeting.
no, I don't think so.
He just, like stumbled across them.
It's I don't know. There's a guy called Damien Lewis. He's a historian, and he was on his he was telling the story in his podcast. So I think he's got a series of books called Great SAS Escapes or something, and I think it's in number 3 of that.
Can you imagine this one thing though, right? Imagine that you're the Slav dude and you've escaped wherever it is, and you go, right, I'm like, stay low, do all this sort of stuff, rely on instinct and training and just intuition and all these great things, and you stumble across into a place and you're finding your way through. There must have been at some moment in time, probably the SAS guys twig him first, right? And at some point, he's got gun sights put on him, and he doesn't even know it. You know,
Yeah.
something there was I would be fascinating to understand or to know what that first tiny interaction was, or even the events pre the interaction, about how close that story came to being snuffed out.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You
because that is it. When you're returning from behind enemy lines, and it's not a pre-organized, pre-arranged. It's a highly risky point when you come
Yeah.
across your own forces who are like sitting there shitting it,
Well,
and then some.
I guess you won't even know that they're there, let alone who they are. And
Yeah,
you know, and they're thinking about, who's this guy? You know, this dude he's looking a bit shifty. Well, of course he fucking
Yeah.
is. He escaped from a bloody concentration camp.
yeah.
And they're going, I reckon, is he gonna give our position away? Are we gonna have to kill him quietly with a coat hanger, you know,
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, with a coat hanger. I've got my stand and my brand. No, pass me the coat hanger.
It's covert, mate. Hush, hush. Is this?
Yeah.
Come on, Andy.
But,
Follow the game.
yeah,
the game.
actually, but
You said you're intelligence.
well, I never said that.
Oh, sorry.
I never said that, and it's clearly blatantly untrue. And it brings me on to the point where, so what happened is that when they were bringing, after David Sterling in the desert set up the SAS, and the sort of the whole approach and principles behind it, they were training lots of more multinational SAS forces in the UK, and they gave them tasks like, for example, something like this: get from Land's End to John O'Groats. Yeah, don't care how, and so. Like apparently a bunch of them broke into like a British submarine base and nicked a submarine. I don't know if they got away with it, and they were like, "Well, you know, you've got to think outside of the box." This is actually going to tie in at some point in the future to sort of innovative thinking and inventive thinking. You've got to get out of the box. So they were actively looking for people who were getting in trouble with the command because they were like, "You're doing it wrong."
You would have thought, though, just in that, you know, thinking outside of the box. I mean, one of the things that we need to think about in these sort of situations is like the risk planning element of it all.
Yeah.
And I would suspect, you know, just taking a punt here, that a submarine base is going to be fairly well heavily fortified.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I would imagine it's not one of those things where they just leave the key in the ignition, you know, like, I don't know, petrol station at the
yeah.
time. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, you might, and I'm not good. You might argue that a petrol station, because fuel was in short demand for the dodgy civilians who want to, that might be quite well guarded. But people are sitting and go, no one's going to break into a sub base. There's no Germans here. We'll be fine.
I think I would have preferred to James Coburn and just nick a bicycle.
Yeah, yeah. So, and what they also all taught to do, or a lot of them were taught to do, and this will give it away, is to drive a steam train.
Right.
Operate a steam train. So what happened when they were in Italy, Major Cariel's made a decision, even though it had zero military strategic advantage, to go and rescue these people in this concentration camp. It's the first time you've heard about a concentration camp. For us lot, it's all quite obvious. Yeah, concentration camps, man.
Yeah.
They suck. It's fucking well done, humanity. But and so they got this train. Apparently they got like an Italian, or a bunch of Italians who could operate, who knew the pinch points on the route up. I don't know how far it was. They had to go up. They had to get past a bunch of German checkpoints. So they had a second crew of SAS who went up and secured those. They steamed up. They took over the concentration camp. They took the commandant, and they got I think 180, or as Damien Lewis says, a train full of people they could carry, so the weak and the infirm and the needy. And they said to the rest of them, right, head into the hills. The Allies will be here soon, and then everything will be sorted. And then they chained it back, and it was all hunky dory. Now, no one knew about this when Damien Lewis was doing his research. He got a whiff of this story and he said, that's balls. That can't be right. That's insane. We would have heard of that. But he found 3 pieces of corroborating evidence. And then so it happened. But what happened is when they were going to publicize this concentration camp thing, apparently the British command said, no, don't do that, because if the British forces, if the Allied forces find out what some of the Germans are up to, it's going to be quite a fractious victory. You're not going to accept people's surrenders quite so willingly.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah, and also
it's going to be much more of an emotional encounter.
Yeah, exactly. There'd be more coat hangers.
Yeah, right. As if it weren't already. Yeah. I might have killed you, but now I'm definitely going to fuck you up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's going to take at least 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and 4 coat hangers. We had to start melting down the Bren guns to make them coat hangers.
Billiard balls in socks, maybe.
Yeah. And also that they knew then that they were. I don't know why this has turned into a history lesson, but it's got a point actually. They wanted to be friends with the Germans after the war, because forward thinking, they knew they're going to win the war, and then the next thing was really war with Russia. So they needed the Germans to be
the British. So therefore, that hence the reason why they didn't want to release the notion of the concentration camps and what was going on there, because they didn't want it to really really kick off.
Yeah,
and because before it was going to be a case of, well, look, you bombed the city, you did this, you did that, you did the other, but where you drew the line, where you crossed the line, where you crossed the line was. Okay.
So I think it's quite different actually, because if you think about it, if they'd invaded Britain, and then because what's going on in Ukraine at the minute, it's how can you forgive that if in your country? I don't know. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a difficult thing. I don't see how there's a meaningful emotional resolution there. Political, perhaps, commercial, perhaps, but emotional. Talk about transgenerational trauma.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's sort of, but things do progress and do move on. I think as the generations progress, the memory fades, the generational trauma becomes much more distant. And things move on. I mean, I know that, for example, because my mum's was Korean.
Yeah,
and they had a lot of animosity towards the Japanese, of course, because the Japanese, when they invaded, they prevented you weren't allowed to talk your own native language and all this other stuff,
Yeah,
and there was a lot of animosity there, understandably so, back then. I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. So you can understand a bit of that, but I think this whole thing about history. I mean, I think the Ukraine situation is an interesting conversation for maybe another time,
Yeah, fair enough.
when we can really get into some of the diggy details on it all. But
Yeah.
it does highlight a few things, like for me, which I find intriguing about what is really remembered. Because they say history is written by the victor,
Yeah.
and which essentially is the whole thing of propaganda, isn't it? Is the weaponization of media, the weaponization of information, because fundamentally the thing, hence the reason why it's all about capturing the hearts and minds and all that kind of garbage. But really, the hearts and minds are on all sides and all spheres, including acceptability at home for what's going on. I find it amazing. For example, that everything about the invasion of Iraq, the old bullshit Blair presided over, all of that, the justification for it and everything else, the dossiers, all of that stuff has just patently been proven to be falsified, and I think the technical term is bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And yet it's just neatly sat back there. Oh well, it's long ago. I was like, hang on a second, is there a statute of limitations for the illegal invasion of another country and the mass slaughter of a population? I'm not convinced that there is, really.
Yeah.
And likewise, I think actually this is bringing quite neatly onto something that I was looking at, right? Likewise, I'm also fascinated by the Kennedy assassination, and not so much because of the detail about who'd done it and all this kind of stuff. And the amount of information about that that's out there is phenomenal. In actual fact, another time, and we'll let the viewers write in,
Viewer.
The multiple viewers. Come on, Andy.
No. I think there's one. It's my mum. Might watch it.
All right, fine. I think we'll wait for the viewers. Right.
We can ask GPT
to write in and just let us know if they're interested in this topic, because this interesting thing about Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK. Lee Harvey Oswald's name crops up in some very, very sinister program that involves biological warfare and all this kind of stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. Anyways, the thing that fascinates me about the JFK situation is there's so much focus and intent placed on this notion that of what occurred in Dealey Plaza on that day and everything that happened.
Was that where the shooting was? Dealey Plaza.
Do you know anything, Andy?
I know a little bit.
Yes, it was Dealey Plaza. It was in Dallas. So there's so much focus on that. The thing that fascinates me is this notion that it is, without a shadow of a doubt, very obvious and clear to anybody with an element of discernment that spends a modicum of time looking at the official story versus the plethora of data that exists that contravenes the official story, right?
Yeah.
The only conclusion that you can come to is the official story is bullshit, and that there are people within the state of the United States that were complicit in the president's assassination, right?
Yeah.
So quite why I'm worried about how it happened is less chilling than the idea that perpetrators of that event, no one's been caught, no association's been made to anybody, right? And it's now just sat there as this folklore story, and yet the most chilling part of it is, in broad daylight, a group of people, and it was a group of people, killed the sitting president, and it's Oswald. It's about
right?
Are we even concerned about the machine that sits behind the planning that enables that event to occur?
Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
Isn't it desperately miserable and frightening to think that machine has not been taken down, has not been brought to justice, has been kept in the dark for all those years to fester and grow and create more things? I find that to be the most chilling part. not so much
Okay.
detail. Anyway, yeah.
No, absolutely, and that's a huge topic of conversation because it flops. A more recent example of the machinations behind the scene that get found out or don't get found out
Right.
is COVID. Whatever
No.
you might think about it, the evidence
Yeah.
is like sort of clear enough that it's unclear. It can't be compellingly proven either way. Let's just be generous to everyone, all
Yeah.
parties.
Well,
But there's obviously some discrepancies going on. But humans, and this is we could talk about humans are dickheads, and the majority of us. We just say, oh, okay,
we don't do ourselves any favors. If I may pivot away
No.
from COVID, because this is something we definitely will talk about. But
yeah,
again, here's the thing for me about the COVID narrative that I find again fascinating is that we can be told something that's so fundamentally obviously idiotic. But if
yeah,
enough people tell me this enough of the time, and if I'm scared enough, I'll fucking
Yeah.
believe it, right?
So it gets back to no,
Go on.
that's fine. So sorry to interrupt, but I'm
No,
going to
go
go. So it goes back to your first sort of statement about truth. What is truth? And then if it's so compellingly evident that the fact is a compelling a grouping of aligned zeitgeist, if you will, and
right.
it's just marketing. It's marketing,
Yes.
and we're the target audience, and we're well known because we're humans and we're emotional and easily manipulated, and let's because we
No, but actually, so I've got a story to flick back on, which is a little bit about, which is kind of touching on this whole thing about it. It's kind of all about marketing and it's about the presentation of this information that kind of sits narrative. But just on this, the thought it's like this. It goes something like, in order for me, it seems like paradigm, the model is, in order for me to disbelieve or to challenge what's being presented to me in terms of a theory or in terms of the fact that I don't know, angel dust is sweeping the land and it's turning feet into blancmange and and all
are we
this.
talking about PCP or are we talking about
No.
angel?
Actually, I was dust from angels' wings.
Oh,
Sorry,
fine. Okay.
I forgot the level of the experience of the audience that I'm talking to. But in order for me to suggest that event is questionable, untrue, or what have you, right? I have to present the counter to, well, why are people's feet turning into blancmange then? But whereas the reality of the situation is that's actually not the case at all. All I have to do is say the details of what you're presenting are rubbish for these obvious reasons, right? The very idea that you can wear a scarf around your face that will protect against a so-called virus that's microscopic is at best idiotic, right? But the point is when you mention that to them, they go, okay, well, what is going on then? You go, hang on a second, those two things aren't linked, right? Like the fact that statement is stupid versus what is going on. I can tell you that statement is stupid for all these reasons without having a clue what's going on. So that's not So it's not incumbent on me rejecting the proposal. For me to reject the proposal, it's not incumbent on me to tell you what a better idea of that proposal will be, right?
Just that is wrong.
Exactly right. I mean, it's just patently ignorant. And so if we look at something that's probably less fearful, but this is a story that's totally fascinating. Okay,
go on.
And it's a story that like just okay. Have you ever heard of a guy called Gareth Williams?
The rugby player.
Oh yeah, he is a rugby player. No, another Gareth Williams. Right?
I don't think so.
So he worked apparently, right? He worked for GCHQ or MI6, the intelligence community. Okay, and in 2010 he was found dead in his flat in London.
Was it orange? Was it an orange in his bathtub?
No. Right, get this. Right? He was found dead in his flat in London in 2010. Okay, he's been missing for quite some time. Somehow they got to the flat. Now then, this is where the situation could be considered weird, right?
Okay.
He was found in a holdall duffel bag.
Yeah.
Inside it, right? Curled up, with the bag zipped up and padlocked from the outside.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
right.
Apparently, they didn't find any DNA evidence or anything else at the scene. And the initial conclusion, the initial verdict was suicide. Right? Let's just pause for a second. Right? Let's just let that scene just sink in and let it stew for a moment.
Yeah.
How on earth has anybody tried to padlock themselves in a duffel bag with the padlock on the outside?
It's doable. I can immediately think it's a hold all soft, because if the padlock's of a suitable size, you can get in there. You can draw most of the zip up, right, until your hand's here, and then you could manipulate the rest with your fingernail along, and then you've already got. Then all you got to do is squeeze the hold all and the padlock, and take a bit of time, but you'll get lucky. Get the padlock in, and then you just through the hold all soft walls, you just close it, and then you die knowing that you've caused a little bit of conspiracy theory to.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, in fairness, what you propose, if there weren't any images or pictures of the holdall and the padlock, right? I suspect, and it's just a suspicion, that it wasn't that clear cut, because if it was that clear cut, there would have been images to that extent.
But,
in actual fact, what happened was that I think 5 years ago, or at some point in time, in fact 5 years ago, or whatever, they reopened the case because there was so many. I think the police described it and said that the nature of his death provoked a wide range of what police later called weird and wonderful conspiracy theories. And you go, I wonder why would that happen? Right.
Yeah.
And so here, like, the contempt for people challenging and questioning the official narrative, right? Is it apparently it's our fault or my fault? Because I went, how on earth are you supposed to do that? Is that really suicide? A bit like the CIA director being found dead in the Potomac River with a gunshot to his head floating down the river or whatever, and that was deemed suicide or something, you know.
Just all Epstein. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, I don't know if there's any evidence to say it's not suicide, but if you follow the money, as it were,
right?
Then
well, there's a lot of odd things there, isn't there? But it's coming back to this Gareth Williams guy. So apparently the police reinvestigated it, and they came to the conclusion that. I think they maintained the conclusion that it was suicide because they couldn't find any additional evidence. They couldn't find any additional DNA or anything else, and And the question of how would he have ever locked himself and put himself in that position wasn't the thing that was being asked or answered. The other thing I don't think that was being particularly asked or answered was what his profession was.
Yeah.
Apparently, the greatest, the biggest revelation, the scandalous revelation that they put out was he had a wardrobe full of women's clothes.
Fine.
Maybe he was an Izard fan. You know,
yeah.
I mean, what, him being a transvestite or enjoying women's clothes, or maybe he was storing them for a friend or whoever knows, right? Was the reason why he was bundled into a holdall, dead, locked in it from the outside. You know, XYZ ... And
so what's your theory about it?
What is my theory about it? My theory.
Can I also add the question to that? Is if you were committing suicide,
yes,
unless the holdall is airtight, which I doubt it is.
Yes.
Well, it might be, but I doubt it is. Then what's the point of padlocking it?
Well, exactly. I mean, all of these questions, there are far more intriguing questions to ask and pose than writing off weird and wonderful conspiracy theories, or the fact that this guy maybe had some sexual proclivity because of the women's closet. The fact that he worked for the intelligence services, right? The fact that it comes back to these things. Just surely, if something is able to be addressed and answered simply, then the more questions we ask, the simpler the answers become. And yet, if something is actually a little bit murky and a little bit weird or very unclear, whether it's been engineered to be murky or unclear, or it's just a bit of a screw up on things, right? What tends to happen is the more straightforward questions you ask, as you've just asked, the less answers you get, the more convoluted they are, and the more
Yeah.
bizarre they become.
Right.
And it's just a classic case in point. For what happened, I do not believe, based on the scant information that's been presented, that it was suicide. I cannot believe that people aren't investigating it further, given the nature of his job, and it just seems to be just quietly. Oh well, there we go.
Yeah. Well, look, obviously, I mean, my it's obvious to me, right? Because of the nature of his job, it becomes a question of national security, and so that's a sort of caveat I would suggest
But
for
Abani,
pretty
let
much
me ask
everything.
you this question. Then why not come out and say we actually understand why he died? It had something to do with what he was doing, and it's a case of national security. You can't tell you that anymore.
But okay, from the question of the point, I would argue from the point of national security, what advantage does that give you? And
Okay,
then you
so
can just write it off as another, we'll just let the public think it's another unsolved, dodgy piece of dodginess and we'll assign it into the weird and wacky conspiracy piece. People just suck it up. They love it, and people know, and actually people don't really care, as we've proven over the centuries, certainly in the
yeah.
recent decades, we can say what we like. And
So does
ignore.
that mean
Perhaps
then,
he was going to be an Edward Snowden.
perhaps,
And they were like, oh, can't have that.
well, quite possibly. So maybe then, therefore, what you've just described is you've elucidated the modality for the intelligence services deception. So anytime we see a death that's weird and wacky, that's got some ridiculously straightforward, idiotic, full of holes rationale behind it, right? At least we know, don't worry, everybody, that's just the state lying to you to make yourself feel better, right?
Yeah.
Drink
Go
your
back to
drink,
sleep.
watch
Yeah, man.
Britain's Got Talent,
Yeah.
watch the
But
football.
yeah,
What's on Netflix? So
but yeah,
here's the thing. So could the same thing be argued? Same thing could be argued of Dr. David Kelly. I mean, coming
yeah,
back to that
absolutely.
criminal Blair,
Yeah,
but Blair,
absolutely.
he was fine. He committed suicide. Go to sleep. We figured it out. It's all fine.
Yeah, but this is to me, I'm okay with it. I accept it. Because if it really bothered me, maybe I'd get off my arse and do something about it. But it seems like it seems like I wouldn't be able to do anything about it until I was in the system, and I'd
Right.
only theoretically be in the system. There's a few exceptions. If it didn't bother me, if I saw it as for the greater good and all this sort of stuff.
I think that's an interesting phrase about it bothering, whether it bothers you or not. But it does it. I was just thinking when you were saying that briefly, I was thinking, does that bother me? I was thinking, no, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it intrigues me.
Okay, yeah.
It reinforces a certain point of view that as citizens we are viewed largely with contempt, or as an infant. We're infantilized, and so
Yeah.
we can't possibly tell you that because you won't possibly understand, and all this kind of stuff. And so things like this just go to reinforce the fact that the state can be quite a concerning entity when it wants to.
Yeah. So the notion that I know, and this says more about my own ego and perception of my own smartness, is I've met some Whitehall people, and I think it's fair to say that some of them are very, very clever, and some of them are not. And the notion that is that we wouldn't understand it, I think I a lot, I can draw lines between things and go, it's quite possible that I understand that like this, and okay, fine, like national security or someone fucked up. And it's a cover up, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't bother me that much. I actually quite like having this air of, and I think during COVID, the whole notion of what a conspiracy theory is has changed because beforehand it was like, tinfoil hats. But during COVID, you had people on opposing sides of the narrative with as many letters after their name that before the incident, the period of whatever, they were reviewing each and agreeing each other's papers in the Lancet and the BMJ, and it was like, yay! But now we're separate, so you can't call these people the same
Morons.
type of conspiracy. Yeah, they're not. They're obviously not morons. And also they and then so then it becomes obviously it's narrative, agenda driven stuff. Whoever's got the control of the reins, and kind of good luck to them as long as I've got a highly defensible position. Should the
What, in
shit hit the
Birmingham?
shit. Yeah, no, good luck in Birmingham. No, but on
No,
the
no, I was just trying to throw them off. I was just trying to throw them off the scent.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I thought that. But no, I'm very open about what I am and what I do to an extent. All the sort of work stuff I do. It's all public domain. That thing you said about intelligence was funny, but obviously insane. Because I know from open source there's so much OSINT out there and SOCMINT and human. There's so much intelligence. So if you spend like 15 minutes, stalking someone, if you will, going through what's available. There's so many tools now. You have to put a severe amount of effort, especially if you haven't been like covering your tracks for 30 years, and your digital footprint is like a whacking great pinnacle of Amazon and Strava and Pornhub. then
that's just one weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So fuck it. But anyway, so right.
So what we can take? So what can we take from this? What are the nuggets of what we can take from this discussion? What have you gleaned from this discussion, Andy? Is there anything that you can reflect back that I can then meditate on tonight with a gin and tonic?
Yeah. Ooh, good one. I think the overarching takeaway that I have so frequently is humans are dicks, and we deserve what we get, even if we're well-meaning and blah blah blah. We are ultimately dicks, and then it gives me to the point where, oh god, I can't wait until AI, proper AI, like AGI, not fucking large language models. We can talk about it all the time. That's all a big hunk of shit. That's but it's useful, but it's a big pile of shit when it comes to intelligence or simulation intelligence. But I sometimes say, oh god, if AI had been involved in that, like a complex algorithm,
right?
Like,
you would really have a problem.
No, you'd be fine because you wouldn't have fucked it up for a stupid emotional reason. Not for all the circumstances, but let's just get that done. Why didn't you get it done? Oh, well, I felt like I was a little bit this, and then he said that, and she did this, and it all went. It's so simple. All you had to do was this in a linear chain, and there's two dependencies that could have connected, and everything be lovely, but you fucked it up. Why? Because you're humans, you're dicks. If we just had like an algorithm, it would have got. Right. But the algorithms are a bit simple still, so there's a limit to what you can.
As are clearly the people in power.
Well, they're getting away with it,
but they're still yeah.
They may be dicks, but because we're all dicks, but they. I mean, what do you want? Money? Yeah, all right, go on then. Power? Yeah, and I'll do quite a lot to keep it, and then. Yeah, here we go.
So you're. I find that fascinating that the desire to want to have that level of AI running like amok, like like a
wait, hang on, where did the word amok come from?
Like a 9-year-old in a chocolate factory. I mean, doesn't that sound quite terrifying?
No, because my son is almost 9, and if you put him in the chocolate factory, yes, he would eat chocolate, but he would also probably improve the processes.
Right. Okay.
We could get more chocolate if we put that bit there.
That's good. I'll be able to sleep easy at night now. That's
I mean, you've met him, so maybe I'm talking out my arse. But
well, I'm just likening the idea now of the development of AI to your son in the chocolate factory, and everything's going to be great. So does that mean we're going to return back to proper size Mars bars, and they're going to reintroduce topics?
Yes, mate. I put the sugar back in Ribena. My brother still hasn't got over that. He's upset about it. But when it was like the sugar tax or something, I can't remember years ago, and then I didn't actually notice it, and then he got. I don't have the greatest palate, I think, and then we got talking about it. He goes, "Oh, do you want a Ribena, Simon?" And he was like, "No, how can you offer me an Ribena? Because it's Ribena, Simon. We've been drinking it since we were, like wired 4-year-olds. Yeah, but it's not the same, Andrew."
Yeah,
and then he told me,
so
and then I was like,
replaced. What have they replaced?
Oh yeah, no! Oh my god! Yeah, something less natural probably, but healthier.
So they've actually replaced the sucrose, the sugar, with like sucralose or some such horseshit. Is that?
I don't know. I don't pay. See, this is my approach to life. I don't pay too much attention to the details because A, I can't because my brain
Right.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But B, I'm like, you know what? We'll all be dead soon. In a good way. I use that in a good way, so it like condenses our need to get on with whatever we might want to get on with.
We're on a finite journey, so why do I need to
are.
worry about the Ribena sweetener?
Yeah. I mean, I just, and then I go through phases of just drinking water. I'm going through a water phase at the minute, even though
Yeah.
I've got 18 squashes in there. I'm only drinking water, but out of a borehole. You know what I mean?
Right.
None of this. Oh, I remembered what one of the things on the list was.
Go on,
Oh,
right. We're only 48 minutes. We're only 44 minutes.
Okay, well, right, hang on. Let me see. So, right, okay, yeah, right. I came up with this, right. So it's Dostoevsky. Can you say it for me, please?
Dostoevsky, yeah.
Thank you very much. So it's him. Fyodor. Anyway, whatever. The Russian bearded dude.
Indeed.
He came up with saying something along the lines of, don't judge a society based on how well the elite are.
Right.
Rather, judge a society on how it treats its prisoners.
Yes.
Which is all good. And we can have a chat one day about rehabilitation and reoffending and all that shit.
Before you launch, I would like to say though that these days I think we should say you judge a society by how it treats its own people, its own populace, its own population, its indigenous population, right?
Yeah, but that's what prisoners. That I think that's what I mean too. Because when you're saying you're prisoners, we're not talking POWs, or maybe we are. We're talking like the lowest, not the highest elite of society, like the 0.1%. I know you understand. I don't. Okay. Right.
Anyway, move on.
Okay. So I've been thinking about this bit, not very long, but and it was like, let's not judge, and we should add to the aphorism locker, do not judge a society by its GDP,
right?
Rather judge it by its condition of water that it drinks. In my notebook, I've written that far more fluently, like someone who is a writer might write. Not what I did. My point being, you can survive without most things for a while, but water, we all know this, pretty freaking vital.
3 days, yeah.
And what's going on at the minute, and it's been going on for ages, but it's really caught the zeitgeist, is the quality of water across, I think, probably all of our nation. And what the bloody hell's going on, and there was I wrote down some notes along the lines of, like, Thames Water has just been fined £40 million for paying too much dividend to its shareholders, of whom I think the vast majority are offshore, as in not UK based and don't pay any tax. So that's money just pouring. Let's use that symbolic language, pouring out off the country, and they say apparently they got off what is it? They fined Thames Water 40 mil, and then at the same time the government's giving Thames Water, which is fundamentally bust, as I hear, 16 million as an innovation grant. So you know that's very interesting. And then they go, well, look, we inherited. Sorry, we inherited this old shit. I didn't say this, but I think it's obvious. We've got like Victorian plumbing, or a lot of it's Victorian, and all this sort of stuff. So it's tough. But you've had a long time, and the government's given, I think, like £89 billion in subsidies since 2000, whenever it was privatised, in 1985 or something, or whatever. Anyway, and there's like Devon's, they've had, like, I wrote down the word, the disease, coprosyphilis something. Actually, that sounds a bit close to coprophilia, but it's something along those lines. And then people are boiling their water. It happened in the Thames water. They said, "Can you boil your water, please, if that's all right? Because otherwise you're going to get poorly, and you're going to erupt from both ends." And I just find that it's as a measure of society, how can we look at ourselves and again, but we're letting them get away with it, and I'm not that bothered really. And you know why I'm not bothered? It's because I've got a borehole.
But okay, so I think war is a fascinating one because aside from the fact that, if I'm aware, right, the water treatment plants, one of the things they cannot remove and get rid of is they can't get rid of medications. They can't get rid of like all of the xenoestrogens and all of these kinds. They can't get rid of medications. They can't get rid of all of these things that are inherent in our effluent as we pass it through. And uh, so the more medicated we become as a society, I'm not aware of any study that's looking into whether which of these compounds actually stay within the water cycle, the drinking water cycles and things like this. So,
And
and then
microplastics.
and then you've got things like microplastics and things like this as well. And then you've got, on top of that, you then talk about the sort of the broader context of things, which is, and this is definitely something for another time, because I do have a very nice little video of this, which was shot just outside of my place, which is an aircraft depositing short patterns of trail coming out
Are we
behind it.
going to contrails? Are we going to get?
Yeah, right. Okay, so you call them what you will. Some people say, "Oh no, that's just a condensation trail," and other people call them chemtrails or whatever. But
Yeah.
the phenomena that I actually caught on a phone camera phone, right,
Yeah.
is literally see a long dash, a space, and a long dash, and then
Okay.
I mean, when I say a long dash, is and then so that's already there, and then another plane aircraft is going in, and I've actually caught that on camera physically doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so two planes.
Well, one plane had been and gone and left one
Yeah.
trail. Another plane, actually, I've got on camera actually doing it a certain distance away from the first two.
Okay.
Trails, right. The point being is that okay, oh, they're just contrails. Well, okay, someone needs to explain how a contrail manifests in this how it's manifested here, with a remarkable staccato repetitive pattern. Okay, so that's the one thing. The second thing is that I believe the Met Office has just admitted to spraying atmospheric spraying of some things. But
Why? Why? What?
I don't know. I don't know. I only caught a commentary about it. I need to do a bit more digging on. But that aside, the one thing that has been recorded across the globe is the increase in heavy metals in very remote lakes, and the only way that they're going to be coming is from the rain. And so things and that corroborates with certain whistleblower testimony of people who have been looking at inventory manifests for aircraft, albeit this was in the States, and they start talking about unbelievable or huge quantities of salts, heavy metal salts, the likes of strontium, barium, aluminium, and all of these sorts of things being sprayed. And it turns out that those are also the heavy metals that are being picked up in the States in these high level lakes in the mountains, right? Especially in Northern California. And so, coming back to your point about the boreholes and the water quality, in some cases, it's kind of, does it matter that the water companies are worse than useless and fundamentally are almost like the biggest mosquito that's got their proboscis attached to the largest artery in the UK's
government's
sort of
arse.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's just there literally siphoning the money, right? And it's, to your point, it's disappearing, and the government's all finger wagging about Thames Water and all this, that, and the other stuff. And so, well, hang on a minute, you guys sold the fucker, like you sold the family silver. And now there's this sudden revelation that it was the wrong thing to do because, oh my God, there's profiteering involved. You go, really?
Yeah.
Surely the whole role of government departments, councils, and all this kind of stuff is to manage and look after infrastructure to the benefit of the population, right? Because we are paying for it. But we bastardized that system quite a long time ago, and now we're going, oh my God, you know what? The water quality is a bit shit here, isn't it? You fucking really? Of course it is.
But so there was this guy. Yeah, well, I think you talk the truth, brother. And there was, oh fuck it, what was it? There was a guy. I think he called the guy in blue or the blue got on the Question Time. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch or something like that. Yeah, BBC Question Time. And this guy, he asked someone on the panel. Let me try and get this kind of right. He said, like 2/3 of the planet is covered in water. Everybody has to come to the water company to get their water. There's not a competitive market. Oh bollocks! There was more than that. It was and oh, I've let myself down. Basically, it was like, if you can't make a business out of this,
Right,
you should
right.
not be in business. It's almost like the ideal business model, captive audience. How if you fuck it up, you
Yeah.
almost may be doing it on purpose.
Yes,
There's
there's
no
some
excuse for it.
or look, and at the end of the day, like the infrastructure, of course, the infrastructure, probably dates back to the 1800s that you slowly got
Yeah,
to replace, and in some
yeah,
cases,
true.
it's largely impossible. I get that.
Yeah,
It's vastly complex, incredibly complicated. You got the sewage system, blah blah blah, all of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
It was just and it, it's just an unbelievable naive situation, and it's like profiteering, really. It's like taking
yeah,
from the World Bank's plan to destabilize and sell off and drop everyone down to the lowest common denominator in society. And if you've read a book called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that's fascinating. It talks about the plan. The plans are, to sell off national infrastructure to private utility firms, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless of which, coming back to the point about, water quality, could it be better? Yes, it could. Could the water companies be doing a better job? Yes, they can. Is it a difficult situation? Is it difficult infrastructure to manage? Yes. But to your point, bit of a fucking captive market, isn't it?
yeah.
Beyond that, though, there are things going on that are outside of everybody's control. The people making the decisions to spray the skies.
What?
Right.
Sorry. Why are they spraying this? What's the general idea? What speculation, let's say, behind
Well,
why they're
the
doing it?
firstly, the go-to comment is we're not doing that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The
Then,
go-to comment,
yeah.
the go-to response is, well, that's ridiculous. It falls under conspiracy theories. It's remarkable how many conspiracy theories end up being true.
Yeah, but they doesn't mean. Yeah, but so what? It's like
Well,
COVID
exactly.
was. Let's
Yeah,
say
exactly.
COVID was a conspiracy theory, and now there's so much evidence going. You said 2 years ago, you said exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well,
We can
yeah,
forget
and so
about it
what?
now, because now I'm
Yeah.
saying it's no longer
So
conspiracy theory.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
exactly,
so
exactly.
on the one side, they're saying, oh well, no, that's not going on at all. On the other side, it's talking about geoengineering for climate change purposes and all this other rubbish, right?
Big,
But I don't know the mechanism. I don't know the mechanism as to why. They talk about weather modification and things like this. Some people talk about weather modification and all this kind of stuff, and people go, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. That's actually stupid." Which it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like Bond villain-esque type stuff.
yeah,
Where you go out into the upper atmosphere with a giant laser and
yeah,
all these sorts of things. And that sounds ridiculous until the point where you get off your ass and do a bit of digging and find the weather modification patterns that go back to the 1920s. And the fact that the Middle East cloud seed
yeah.
and
I was going to say that's public, isn't it? That's knowledge.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
There are companies. There are private companies that offer services to countries, government countries, that claim that they can assist their weather modification programs, so that they can generate macro/micro climates to
yeah,
achieve the environmental conditions that they need for crop yield or for whatever it may well be.
yeah,
And so, why are they doing it? No idea. The fact that it's denied that it's occurring is a concern, because I thought that the government, we're only here to look after you citizens, really.
yeah,
And this is where these things do join together. These thoughts and these ideas join together, and without a credible explanation that withstands scrutiny, that you're able to have a dialogue on, what else are people are going to end up doing? I think you're going to fall into three camps, right? A
yeah,
complete ignorant shill that just buys everything that's being told to me because I read it in the paper and the government told me, so it must be true, because they wouldn't do that, right?
yeah,
Huge lump of people in the middle that aren't even aware this is going on, because I've got my own troubles in my own life to deal with and all this other stuff, not realizing that the troubles in your own life are largely developed as a result of these very programs that are going on. And then those
yeah,
people at the other end, these other people at the other end, who are labeled conspiracy theorists, whack jobs, and idiots. Now, I say we are because I class myself one of these people. Is yes, we are whack jobs and idiots and morons, right? So prove what a moron I am by just answering my questions. Prove what a moron I am just by having a conversation with me without denying the conversation by saying, "Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist." It was like, okay. Well, explain why the strontium, barium, and aluminium levels in this particular lake are where they are. Or you're just a conspiracy theory. That doesn't answer the question, does it?
No, and then they'll never engage, because the first rule of audience manipulation is don't engage with anyone who's if you engage with oh no, it's actually this is the conspiracy theory is correct for these reasons, and tell me why it isn't. They'll never engage with that, because if they do, then it starts giving a level of credibility to the actual. So minister said it's not because of this and this. That those words can never pass the minister's lips, and because they will take that conspiracy theory onto the next level of attributable potential facts, like you said at the beginning. It starts,
and therefore the only modality that you've really got to fall back on, right, is to repeat. Just repeat what you need to repeat. Deny. In actual fact, don't even deny, right?
Yeah, not by denial. Sorry, yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a model that is unbelievably ridiculous, like the magic bullet theory, coming back to the original thing about JFK, about how it changed direction 9 times and killed 58 people or whatever it may be. And it was later seen at a bar drinking before it was found in pristine condition in the side of a gurney in a hospital ward, right? So
I'm listening. Keep going. Go on.
I don't care. It doesn't matter how unbelievably idiotic and insane this thing is. If I repeat it enough, if I continually default back to that particular thing, that's all that matters. And in actual fact, that is also how the pop industry works, in the sense that
popular music,
the greatest predictor of whether or not a piece of music is going to be successful and a hit, it's got nothing to do with its artistic merit or the poetry or the exquisite nature of the musicality and the musicianship and the creativity. It's got everything to do with how many fucking times it's played. Right.
Okay, right. Exactly. I'm going to contest that point. I'm so glad. I think there's absolutely an element of truth to it, but I saw a snippet of something. I think it was from Noel Gallagher. Now, which is the older brother? Is that Noel or Liam?
One of them.
Yeah, fine. The older one. And I was like, oh. And I watched it, and he was like, no one... Jimi Hendrix... Oh, God, my memory. Jimi Hendrix wasn't supposed to exist. No one wanted Jimi Hendrix. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, that wasn't... No one wanted that. His point was there's so many things that the pop maestros didn't organise that ended up being what the customer wanted. The point being, the customer doesn't know what they want.
I would argue, honestly, the toss about the Beatles and their role and where they came about and things like this, but that's an aside. Those cases that you've just mentioned, let's say that is indeed the case and they were the aberration, right? So let's say that were indeed the case, then that's not the type of music I'm referring to. I'm referring to things like, I don't know, Bob the Builder.
Easy,
right?
But yeah.
There's like way back in the day when I was growing up, there was a song in the charts called Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. How did that go to number one?
It's catchy. It's like the bird song.
Yes, the bird song. So you just illustrated my point. You play it enough times, your bloody smoke alarm becomes catchy, right? I just like the incessant beat, man. Yeah, it really drives home its message. You play something enough, you give something enough playtime, airtime, familiarity, it will become a pop. It will become a hit.
Okay. Well, I think this.
So this is where these two worlds join together. Edward Bernays has a lot to answer for.
Who does?
Edward Bernays.
Who's that then? Bernays
he's
Sauce.
He's the godfather of spin. He's the one that invented all this sort of stuff.
I think they've been doing it longer than whoever he is.
Back in the 30s.
Oh yeah, there's older books. Oh look, I've got it. Actually, look, this one. I was trying to find this graphic novel I've got about one theory behind JFK shooting to do with the mob. So this one here. Extraordinarily Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. Did you just say Mackay or did you say someone else?
No, Bernays.
So Mackay, this is like 18 something, but it's fascinating. He does all these studies of how humans are dicks and easily So let's use and we should probably wrap this up in a minute because
Yeah.
people might get bored. Well, sorry, my mum might get bored. Sorry, mum, if you're still here. Sorry for the language. But it's like the bird song, right? I love it when it comes on Family Guy.
Right.
I love it, and I look at my wife, and she's like, "Oh, I'm turning this off. Not again. Can't do this." And like the fight between Peter Griffin. Do you watch Family Guy at all? Oh, mate, I know what you'd say, but it's brilliant. Peter Griffin and this guy dressed up as a chicken. Or is he a chicken? He could be a chicken, but it's like there are these fights that go on for like 5 minutes. And it's hugely inventive. But anyway, it's turning me on. I'm loving it. I can't take my eyes off it. I want it to keep going. And Alice is going mad. So there's maybe it says, and I used to love, and I still do, like jungle and rave music and gabba and hardcore and all this sort of stuff. And that's fundamentally just a very. And if I put that on when Alice is there, then I mean, we can talk about neurodiversity and brain types and all this sort of stuff, but for her, it has the opposite effect. Whereas for me,
well, clearly your wife,
works.
Alice, is a hugely discerning, evolved, very
you
creative
know.
human being. I wouldn't really classify her in the general melee cesspool of the average pond scum.
But yeah, she married me.
Well, quite.
Maybe that's a conspiracy. Mum and Dad are still paying her off.
And you'll never know. Because they'll deny it. Seriously, Andy, if you go and ask them about that, I'll guarantee you they'll deny it, and they'll come up with some real top level thing about. No, and you remember you just met her in a pub. Remember that time? And you go, okay,
but hang on, how did you find out about that bit, Mum? Oh, you must have mentioned it when you were drunk.
You crack easy under questioning.
Right, should we? I think. Go on. Do you want to wrap it up? What should? Yeah, give me your takeaway. No, have you just done that? You've done that quite effectively.
Yeah, I think that some of these larger topics are kind of connected in many ways. I think we've got certain things that we can investigate and chat about in future episodes. Not least of which the video of the chemtrailing. And more about the JFK thing and the COVID debacle and all good fun things like that. But no, it's been fun.
Yeah, excellent. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.
You've got to go because your dog's jumped the 6-foot fence again.
That's what I wrote in the script. Yeah. I said, and he does all the time, but not this time. I hope because okay. So there's a email address because I will set up some social media channels at some point, and I don't know what they'll be yet. But the email address is thewitteringpodcast@gmail.com. So I'll try and put that on the screen.
Yeah,
right here.
So that's a good idea. Yeah. And what we can do is we can answer any questions the vast audience may have. If there's anything pressing that they have any questions on based on what we discussed, that's all great. Otherwise,
can we say answer them? Because does that suppose there's an element of correctness about them? We can give our opinion.
We can answer them whether it's right or wrong or not.
It's up to you who you believe. That's it. It's up to you who you believe, and that's it. It's actually anyway. We'll talk about it. Belief. It's not about facts anymore. So I think it's about belief.
Yeah. That's your wrap up for the last hour?
Yeah. Okay.
It's all about belief and how distorted certain hours are.
Yes. Anyway, it's been a pleasure.
Exactly. The two takeaways. The two takeaways is this. There are three points. Number one, it's all about belief. Number two, you believe humans suck. Number three, I believe that systems of governance suck. So there we go.
Fine. And you said something before about that systems of government. You said it's self-protecting. You said that a few months ago, and it hasn't left me. And I've taken credit for quoting that so many times. So thanks for that. That's been really good. But right, thank you, Paul, man, my brother, and talk to you soon. See everyone soon.
Time to go and do something useful.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Cheers.
So
right, that's it. It's done.